Hello and welcome to yet another class session, Grade 8. It is indeed a privilege to be with you once more. I am Miss Campbell, as you know already, and I will be with you for this session. Now, just before we jump right into this lesson, is there any questions, any concerns? Yes, no? All right, so just in case we have any questions, any concerns, you can go ahead and you can type it or send them in the chat below, right? I will ensure to respond as soon as possible. All right. Now we are going to dive right into this. So, as per usual, you know that once you come to class, then you have to be ready and prepared. So, I trust that you have everything that you need for this session. Now, I'm going to share with you my screen as we're about to get started. All right. Okay, so I think my screen is coming up lovely. Now, for this session, by the end, right? So by the end of this session, you should be able to define irony. You should be able to describe how ironies are used in writing. You should be able to list and define the three types of irony, and you should be able to read examples of irony and correctly identify the type of irony used in the example. So those are our objectives that we will be focusing on. All right. So in fact, we are looking at irony. Awesome. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a quick write. And what I mean by this, you will be answering some questions, right? You will be answering some questions in which I'm going to time you. So I'm giving us 5 minutes. So let me get my screen again. Let me get my screen. And as I said, I'm going to time you just about 5 minutes to quickly respond to the following questions. So let me get the timer on. All right, so that's the first question there. So now I can start the time, all right? Let's go. All right, so you're focusing on these questions, right? Just about 2 minutes to go. Just about a minute. All right, so our time is up, right? Our time is up. So now we are going to place our attention on some of what you've written. Now, when we talk about an irony, who would like to share with us what you have for an irony? Go ahead, Danielle. Okay, so saying the opposite of what is meant, that's what you have there for your. Okay, so saying the opposite of what you really mean. Okay. How about the types? You have only two. What are those? Right, go ahead and state them. You have situational and verbal. Okay. Anyone came up with all of them? No. Okay, so what is your definition for each? How about the definition? Not certain. Okay, so you don't remember. Okay. Any of us came up with a definition? Any of us come up with a definition? No? Yes? Okay, so you're saying for the verbal irony, it makes reference to what? Okay, you're saying the opposite of what is meant. All right, so keep your information there. Keep your information there. We are going to focus on a short video clipping, right? So keep your information and you may go ahead and make your changes or even to add to what you need to add there, right? So let's go. We're going to focus on a short video clipping. So ensure that you pay attention. You must pay attention, right? All right, let me allow the screen to be big enough. So let's go.
In this video, we're going to look at irony. Now, irony occurs when the reality is different to expectation. That is the overarching definition of irony. We're now going to look at 3 different types of irony, all of which can be shoehorned into that definition. But the first one we're going to look at is verbal irony. Verbal irony is like sarcasm. You can see the girl in the picture saying, "Yay, great weather." So the expectation of those words is that it's sunny and it's shiny and it's great weather. But actually the reality is different. She's being sarcastic. So verbal irony is a synonym for sarcasm. The next type of irony is dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is an event, the significance of which is known only to the observers, typically the audience of a play, but not the participants, typically the actors. You can see an example where we can see that there's a great big shark following the canoe, but the canoeist doesn't know the shark's there. We know it's there, he doesn't. That's an example of dramatic irony. The third one we're going to look at is situational irony. Now, this is the one that everybody thinks about when they consider irony, and it's an event that seems to mock the circumstances. So here you can see, nothing is written in stone. Now those words are literally written in stone. That seems to mock the circumstance. That's an example of situational irony. So here are some more examples. Verbal irony. That's just what I needed. Said sarcastically. In other words, it isn't. I'm so glad it's raining. You're not glad it's raining. It's sarcasm. Dramatic irony. There's no evil witch here. Well, this is a typical behind you moment that you might see in a pantomime. So you can imagine an actor saying that, and all the audience know that there is an evil witch behind the person who's speaking. And then one from Romeo and Juliet. Beauty's ensign yet is crimson in thy lips and in thy cheeks. So this is Romeo wrongly believing that Juliet is dead, and he prepares to take the poison to join her. Now, we know she's not dead. He doesn't. That's an example of dramatic irony. And then some examples of situational irony. Let's examine the words hyphenated and non-hyphenated. So the idea that the word non-hyphenated is actually hyphenated is an example of situational irony. You're the best English teacher ever. Well, clearly the English teacher isn't that good because her student is unable to use the right version of your. An example of situational irony. So, that was the 3 versions of irony. Let's do a quick summary. Irony occurs when reality is different to the expectation. And remember, there are 3 types of irony. It's not all just about situational irony. There's verbal irony, sarcasm. There's dramatic irony, when the audience knows but the actor doesn't. And then there's situational irony, and that's when events occur seemingly in mockery of the situation. That's all. Be sure to check out some of our other videos on grammarmonster.com. We're also on Twitter and Facebook.
All right. So I trust that you were paying attention there
Hello everybody,
to
today we're going to be
the
talking
video
about irony.
clipping, right?
In this video we'll cover a few
So let
things.
me
First
just
of all,
take
the
this
definition
off.
of irony, the different types of irony, dramatic, situational, and verbal. We'll talk about the
All right. So there we have it in relations to the video. So you can double check there on the information that you had. Yes? So what I want for us to bear in mind, we have 3, how many? 3 types of irony. Yes? So it is crucial for us to remember them. So what I want for you to remember when we talk about irony, yes? When we make reference to this, as was made mention in the video clipping there, were we paying attention? If we were paying attention, then we would know that it says it's the reality. It's when the reality of something is different to the expectation it generates, right? So the difference there. Now, when we make reference to the types of irony, we have verbal, dramatic, and situational. Now, What about the verbal irony? What about this? So, the verbal irony is an expression often delivered sarcastically. I think most of us know that word, yes? Sarcastically or humorously to express the opposite of what of its literal meaning. So, sometimes persons will say, "Oh, you're just being sarcastic." So you're actually saying something which you don't really mean, the opposite, right? So this is a situation in which the speaker means something different from what he or she is saying. Any questions, read that? No? Yes? And I'm not sure if we know about Monty Python. Not sure if we know about them and the Holy Grail with his arm, sliced off. And he says nonchalantly, it's just a flesh wound. He was really being ironic, it's just a flesh wound. But it got just a moment, just a moment. All right, that was a bit noisy just now with the bike there. Right. But he was just being ironic because he never really wanted, to show the severity of his injury. So he was actually, being comical about it. Now, how about situational irony? What do we know about situational irony? Now, situational irony, as it suggests, it's an event that occurs seemingly in mockery. So you're mocking the circumstance of what is happening. Yes? So it's really creating a mockery. Now, with the situational irony, this is at play when an expected outcome is subverted. And there are various examples in which we can think about. If you know about the gift of the Maggie, if we know about that tale there, where the wife actually cut her long hair to sell it in order to buy her husband a chain, right? For his prized watch. We know about it. Have we ever read that tale? No? And meanwhile, the husband actually sold his watch in order to buy his wife a comb for her hair. Understand? So the situational irony comes from each person not expecting to have their gift be undercut by the other's action. So if you realize that the husband is really making preparation for the wife and the wife is doing likewise, right? So their expectation there undercut by each other's action. Any questions? All right. So looking lastly at dramatic, when we talk about dramatic irony there, what is it we're talking about? Dramatic. So with the dramatic irony, it is really an event where the significance of which is known only to the observers. And this typically I would say like the audience, like the audience, like when you're watching a movie, yes? So the audience really can observe what is going to happen and not necessarily the participants or the actors. It's like they don't know, but the observers, we're watching and we're able to see, all right, I think this will happen and so forth. We're able to observe what is happening in the movie, in the scene. Yes? So with the dramatic irony, as also known as the tragic irony, take note of that, right? Also known as the tragic irony. And this is when a writer lets their reader know something that a character does not, right? So the audience really can observe and know what is happening, but yet the characters, they don't. Yes? So, for example, let's say when the reader knows that the bus roaring the highway is headed for an elevated freeway junction, that hasn't been completed yet. So it fills the audience with an anticipation and dread for what they know is coming. So the passengers error and shock. And likewise in Shakespeare, I think Shakespeare actually, in Romeo and Juliet, which was stated in the video there, the video clipping, right? So if you realize that the young lover, they actually take the poison, thinking that the other is already dead. Do you know that story about Romeo and Juliet? Yes. So he actually took the poison in the fact that, my lovers passed away. So what's next? Yes. So the dramatic irony comes from the audience wanting to know the whole story before, taking this final action. And we're able to look at other examples that Shakespeare actually written. Yes, so there are a few examples, well, many examples I should see, in which dramatic irony comes into play. Do we have any questions, any concerns? No? Yes? So again, when we talk about the irony, it is really when the reality of something is different from the expectation. There are three main types: verbal, dramatic, and situational. So are we able now to do an activity? Are we able to do an activity? Sounds fun. All right. So in the chat, if you should go in the chat, you would see the link there for our activity. So just click on the link and it should take you to our activity. All right, I'm going to set the timer on again. Just for 5 minutes there, right? But you will have more than the 5 minutes to complete the task. So let's go. All right, so So I think I'm giving you about 3 more minutes to wrap this up. Yes. So I'm giving us about 3 more minutes to just wrap this up. And then we are going to look at our assignment, all right? I see you're going on about there, Keisha. Okay. All right, so I think you will finish up this task there. Yes, I think we're going on pretty well. So I'm watching you. Yes. So what we're going to do, you're going to continue with that task there. Now, for your assignment, what I want for you to do, you are going to create as many newspaper headlines on your own using puns. So again, for your assignment, you're going to create rather as many newspaper headlines using puns. Yes? Now, just to recap the lesson, we've touched on irony, and as I said, it is when the reality of something is different from the expectation it generates. And we looked at verbal irony, dramatic irony, and situational. Remember, verbal has to do with what? It is similar to that of sarcasm. Yes, so saying the opposite of what is meant. With the dramatic, it is where, an event is significant in which it is only known to that of the observer. In regards to that, we're talking about the audience. So the characters don't know what is happening. Yes? And with the situational irony, it is more of creating a mockery of the circumstance. Yes? So you're creating a mockery of what is happening. Any questions? Any concerns? No? Yes? Well, since there are no questions, no concerns, we're going to say bye for now.